Another great day of matches in Marrakech. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We're going to go through our day 4 recap and give you some picks for the following rounds. Let's take a look at the draw. Here's a look at Darderi's half of the draw. And first quarterfinal, we have Darderi taking on Hanfmann. Darderi able to take out Bellucci 6-4, 6-2. Gets the break in the middle of the first set. Nice back and forth from them, but it really just didn't seem like Bellucci had much to provide resistance to Darderi. They were both stepping up on the baseline. They were both ripping shots, but Darderi doing such a better job of opening the court up, using his forehand to dictate in a lot of the points. And once he started to get really comfortable on the surface, obviously we talked about, this is his first match coming back since being at Indian Wells second round loss, Miami second round loss. So it might have taken him a little bit of time to get comfortable on the clay surface. And he didn't look great the first 4 games. Looked a little bit rough there, especially with the movement. But once he started to get going, it was just all downhill for him. He just looked great. I mean, he looks like he's right back to where he was when he won the Chile Open. And we'll talk about that final in a second, as this is going to be a rematch of that final. But Darderi just looked really good. Didn't have to do much to beat Bellucci. I think he was going to beat him even with the B-plus game. Would like to see this match on a hard court, though, because I feel like it would be a little bit different. I think Bellucci more of a hard courter, and that would be a really interesting matchup between those two guys to see if Bellucci can provide maybe a little bit more resistance with his power against Darderi. But here on the clay, he was no match. Darderi advances 6-4, 6-2 into the quarterfinals. Hanfmann, on the other hand, had a very tricky match against Banani. And, guys, I hope we see more of Banani. I mean, he you watch his strokes and you're like, how is this guy ranked outside of, I think he's 700? So, now he's going to be moving up a little bit, at least with this round of 16 appearance. He had some chances here to really make this a match. And you got to credit, he did everything he could to take the second set away from Hanfmann, and he was able to control and dictate with his forehand. He looked very strong. No breaks in that second set either. You could tell at the beginning of the first set, there was a lot of nerves. The first game was a tough back and forth game. It was the longest game of the first set, and Banani able to get the hold, had one break point for Hanfmann, but Banani able to hold and kind of settle in a little bit, gives up the break in the middle of the set to Hanfmann, and Hanfmann able to cruise to a 6-4 victory there. Then we get in the second set, Hanfmann has a couple more break points early on in that set to make it a straightforward match. Banani able to fight those off. But the one thing that I loved, I just feel like, again, the same thing that we saw against Halys, that Banani forehand, there were so many times where he was just freezing Hanfmann. He disguises it very well. It's very tough to read when he steps around it, whether he's going inside out or inside in. So when he does that, I mean, he's just on full offense. And I loved his interactions with the crowd when he won that breaker. He puts his hand in his ear to let the crowd know, he wants to hear them cheer for him, and that's great. That's good stuff. Third set just didn't have enough with the legs. You could tell, what an adrenaline rush it must have been to win that second set, and then just being able to rebound and play the same level. He just wasn't able to do it. It looked like the shots had just a little less zip on them, and Hanfmann able to start to dictate more with his own forehand, and able to advance 6-2 in the third set. Now, looking at this head-to-head between Darderi and Hanfmann, it is 3-0 for Darderi, so a little bit of a lopsided head-to-head, and Darderi has not lost a set to Hanfmann. Let's go through these 3 matches. In 2023, they played in Cordoba. In the qualifiers, Darderi was able to beat him 6-3, 6-4 in the first round of the qualifiers. Then they played again in the same Cordoba Open, and Darderi able to beat him in the quarterfinal 7-6, 6-1. And then they just played this year in the Chile Open, where Darderi was able to win 7-6, 7-5. Let's take a look at some of the stats in that match here. We had Hanfmann with 32 winners, Darderi with 39 winners. We had Darderi with 6 aces, Hanfmann with 10 aces. Darderi served at 69% first serves, won 80% of those. 59% win percentage on the second serve. Hanfmann was 63% first serves in, won 71% of those, 54% of second serves. Darderi was 3 for 6 on break points, and Hanfmann was 2 for 4 on break points. And, I watched the highlights of this match again. I kind of feel like I watched this match twice already in full. I think I just had it on in the background. But this was a really fun match. This is an awesome quarterfinal for Marrakech to have. Like, the crowd is going to be extremely entertained. They had, it was such a fun final to watch. These guys were just rocketing shots against each other, just like booming forehands against each other. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like Hanfmann has a forehand that he can accelerate and hit kind of bigger than Darderi. Darderi does a much better job of opening the court up and then ripping the shot. And Hanfmann, I feel like, has that like a little bit extra power on that ball. In the middle of that first set, the forehand kind of went awry, and we talked about how sometimes that does tend to happen for Hanfmann, where like all of a sudden he's just missing balls by a little bit, and he's miscalculated a few shots on the forehand side. So we can expect maybe that to happen. I'm very curious to see. We have Hanfmann, who's been able to play 2 pretty tough matches here, so he's like well ready for a match like this. And we have Darderi, who was able to just kind of cruise against Bellucci. So I feel like Darderi in the finals of that Chile Open was very like hardened and ready to go. He had a ton of good wins. Navone in 3 sets, Pellegrino in 3 sets, Baez in straight sets, and then Hanfmann in straights. And it was just, you could tell like he was just hitting the ball so clean. He was seeing the ball really well. Are we going to see that again tomorrow? I don't know. I do feel like Hanfmann has the ability to put some pressure on the second serve of Darderi. Hanfmann's got a great return, great forehand return that he can play extremely aggressive. And looking at that Hanfmann result in the Chile Open, straight sets over Lajovic, straight sets over Carabelli, 3 sets against Galbus, and straight sets over Francisco Cerundolo. So not a bad showing there for him. Nice win over Cerundolo for sure. But I think that match, Cerundolo seemed not himself with the back. But I don't know. I don't quote me on that. This is a very tough match to pick. And it's funny, like Hanfmann has never won a set. And I'm saying this is going to be a tough match to pick just because of, 1, the revenge factor, but 2, just if you like pull up and watch the Hanfmann Darderi highlights from Chile and tell me where you see like a difference between these two guys. It is extremely close, especially here now on the clay. This is a tough quarterfinal. Darderi is the defending champion. I feel like Hanfmann's a little bit more like worked on this Marrakech court. I'm gonna go with Darderi. I think Hanfmann's gonna have something to say about it though. I think it's gonna be a tough 3-setter, but I loved what I saw from Darderi today. Obviously against Bellucci, not a great clay quarter, but I just loved the way he was moving, the way he was opening up the court. I think he's going to be able to do that against Hanfmann. I didn't like how Hanfmann kind of has some of these lapses, and I feel like that's gonna plague him in this match against Darderi. If he plays a clean match, I think he's got it, but I feel like there's going to be a few of these lapses. That's why, we saw him against Banani. He drops that set. He also had, I think he had a few tough games in that first set as well. And then the same thing with De Jong. Just a few lapses there. That should have been a little bit more of a straightforward match for Hanfmann. And we talked about how he played so well in that first set against De Jong and barely got through. And it felt like if he didn't win that set, it might have been a totally different match. De Jong going up a break in that second set. So we do have some inconsistencies here from Hanfmann, and I feel like Darderi is going to be able to take advantage of that. I think he's definitely hungry, especially after those two losses in Miami and Indian Wells. He's going to be ready to go. This is going to be a great match. Definitely, you guys got to tune into this one. It's going to be a 3-setter. Give me Darderi in 3. And our next match is Moutet taking on Trungelliti. Let's talk about the Trungelliti match first. First of all, this was an upset. We called this upset. We're 4-0 in our picks here in the Darderi half of the draw. So a pretty nice showing here in the round of 16. Calling that Trungelliti upset against Machac. And I do listen to some other podcasts too, and I know a lot of people were saying Trungelliti really didn't have a chance, but if you watch that match against Roca, and if you saw the way that he was playing, this guy's a clay quarter. He moves pretty well. And Machac just not too comfortable. Had a good run here in Marrakech, so that throws a little bit of the blinders over you, when you're seeing this. Yeah, Machac had a nice run there, but when you run into a guy that's got like a lot of experience and confidence on the clay, it makes it a little bit harder for you. This match is an awesome win for Trungelliti. He's now going on 7 hours on court. He gets to break into the top 100 for the first time in his career. So just an awesome result for him here. He now moves to 11-1 on the clay. Lots of confidence booming from Trungelliti. Hasn't dropped a set yet. The match against Machac, we'll talk a little bit about what I feel like is going to be the difference between Moutet and Machac. Machac not really able to challenge the up and back movement of Trungelliti. Trungelliti moves very well side to side. He's able to get a lot of balls back, and he has this very good sense of like when the opponent is going to be on the defensive. Like what his shots, I can't tell you how many times I saw him just kind of like hit a forehand or hit a backhand and then just immediately charge in because he knew it was going to produce a defensive ball. And I think, especially 11-1 on the clay, that type of experience really helps you recognize those moments. So hats off to Trungelliti, able to get through a 7-6, 6-3 win over Machac. He now takes on Moutet. Moutet able to get a nice win over Body, and Moutet with a great game plan coming out against Body. So we talked about Body against Vukic. Vukic trying to play hardcore tennis on the clay court. He's trying to hit up the middle of the clay court and try to hit through somebody like Body. That's not going to work. Body the movement is so good. He likes absorbing the power. He likes moving you around using your own pace. And he was able to do that against Vukic very effectively. Moutet, on the other hand, does not do that. He's throwing heavy spins at you, and he's testing your up and back movement with his drop shots and heavy spin pushing you back. So Body had to find a way to get on the offensive, and we saw tons of errors from him at the beginning as he was trying to figure out how to kind of get a successful game against Moutet. He lost 10 straight games before he finally got one. And it's a great tournament for Body to be able to get the first round win. Moutet's a much more, I don't know if I would say seasoned clay quarter, 10-9 on the clay last year, 22-15 on the clay in 2024, but he's obviously a better clay quarter than Vukic. And I would definitely say Body's a better clay quarter than Vukic as well. He just is able to use that movement. But today, his speed didn't mean anything to Moutet, who was able to just open the court up using the drop shots, using his heavy spin, and just a lot of errors from Body, unfortunately. Again, similar to Banani at the beginning of the match, you could kind of feel those nerves too. And then obviously, the nerves don't get any better when you start to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, and now you're at 10 straight games you've lost. So it was a little bit difficult for Body, but not able to find any offense against Moutet. Moutet advances 6-0, 6-2 in a nice, straightforward match for him. A match that he could kind of get his feet wet in Marrakech. Now he takes on Trungelliti, and no head-to-head for these guys. But the one difference that I want to say that I think is going to play tremendously here is we saw Machac moving Trungelliti side to side. Trungelliti looked great. I want to see how he looks when he's moving up and back, defending the heavy spin of Moutet and the drop shot of Moutet. That, to me, I don't think Trungelliti is going to be able to do it. Honestly, if he was able to do it, he would probably already be top 100. I think he's going to struggle here against the style of Moutet. Moutet's spin on this clay, extremely effective. It's going to jump up at you. Trungelliti is going to be pushed back. He's going to have to defend a lot of these short balls. He's going to have to come in not on his own terms, on Moutet's terms. And then Moutet also can kind of like step in and hit some balls flat as well. So a lot more variety from Moutet than Machac is going to be able to offer. And I feel like this is going to give Trungelliti a lot of issues here. But 11-1, he has Trungelliti in just 1 year in 2026 has just as many wins as Moutet does in 2 years. So that does go, to say something. I really think, especially in tennis, if you know how to win and you almost forget how to lose. And conversely, it's the same thing. If you're losing a lot, you kind of forget how to win. But here it's like Trungelliti just like he's playing with so much confidence. And I'm very curious if this match gets close, you got to like Trungelliti in it. But I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be straight sets for Moutet. I think it's going to be like 4-4 or 4-3. But I'm telling you guys, if it gets to like 7-6, 7-6 or 7-6, 7-5, and we're at like 5-all, or we're at 5-all in the third set, I mean, you gotta favor Trungelliti. You gotta favor the guy that has 11 wins this year on the clay, that is playing with confidence. So just be aware of that when you're kind of like looking at these matches too. But I'm going with Moutet. He's going to advance. He's going to play Darderi in the semifinals. Give me Moutet in straight sets. And here's a look at Darderi's half of the draw. Again, guys, that Darderi half match, you got to get some eyes on that. That's going to be a great match. Moutet Trungelliti could also be a pretty solid match as well. So definitely look out for that one. If Darderi and Moutet are able to both advance, I think we'd have a really nice match. You got Darderi, who's really solid from the baseline. Moutet, who's going to challenge him to kind of move up and back a little bit. Challenge Darderi with the drop shots. Challenge Darderi with his heavy forehand spin. So I would be really interested to see kind of how Darderi neutralizes that. But we'll talk about that match when we get to it. Let's move on to the next half of the draw. Here's a look at Griekspoor's half of the draw, and we still got one round of 16 match to talk about, the Kopriva and Mueller match. And guys, someone's gonna have to tell me, because I keep hearing on different podcasts that people are watching these matches. People were watching the Kopriva Medjedovic match, but I looked. I don't have it on Tennis Channel. I didn't see it on Tennis TV, so I don't know what it's being streamed on. But hopefully somebody can let me know there. So Kopriva able to survive Medjedovic 6-7, 7-5, 6-2. Again, wasn't able to get eyes on that match, unfortunately, because I really wanted to see that match. I like the way Medjedovic is playing. I mean, he's coming off that challenger win in Naples, I believe it was, and gave Kopriva everything he could handle. We know Kopriva's a pretty solid clay quarter as well. Mueller, on the other hand, beat, I believe it's Sina? And this was a pretty straightforward match. Mueller went down he went down a break early, and then just a lot of errors from China. And that was basically it. And you could see like the talent from the Italian's racket. Like he definitely has game, but he's got to be able to find some like consistency in that game. There are just way too many errors. He had probably the biggest strokes on the court that day. I mean, he was definitely hitting bigger than Mueller was. But he was just missing a lot of balls. And every time Mueller pulled him wide, he'd try to go for like some of these bigger shots. And it's like, go for the smart shot. You can go aggressive with the smart shot. So a lot of errors from him. Mueller able to take advantage of that. He gets through 6-2, 6-3. And looking at this head-to-head here, it is 1-0 for Mueller. He beat him in an F2. Lebanon F2. It looks like it was in 2018. Mueller beat Kopriva 3-6, 7-5, 7-6 on clay in the first round. Not really sure how much we can put into that. Kopriva this year is 6-4 on the clay. He was 25-13 last year, 21-16 the year before, 34-21 in 2023. He had some nice results, made it out to the semifinals of Rio, losing a tough three-setter to Echeverry. Remember, that was the one that was delayed on and off. I think it spanned over 2 days. So there was a lot there for Kopriva. And Mueller, on the other hand, played in the Naples Challenger, and he got 2 wins there, and then lost to Medjedovic, the eventual champion, 6-2, 6-2, and then got his 1 win here in the first round over China. He sits at 3-1 on the clay, 11-10 in 2025, 20-12 in 2024, 18-12 in 2023. So he does play. Most of his matches are on the clay. A lot of his matches are on the clay for Mueller. So he does have a little bit of a familiarity with it. Even though Mueller has that head-to-head, I'm leaning towards Kopriva. I like the fact that he played a tough match against Medjedovic. I think Medjedovic was a tough first-round draw. I mean, Medjedovic probably wins against almost all of these guys if he plays them in the first round. Maybe not Buse. Maybe that's a much tougher match for him. But I think I mean, like, just looking at all these other guys in the round of 32, I think he beats them. I think this was a very tough match for Kopriva and a really nice match for him to get through. And now he's kind of grooved and ready to go. We talk about how that really does help, kind of like focus you a little bit. You're not winning a 6-0, 6-2 match. Or like in Mueller's case, a 6-2, 6-3 match where the guy's just hitting a lot of errors. You're playing a tough match where the guy is kind of grooved. He's got a lot of confidence coming off a challenger win, and Kopriva able to get through that match. I like Kopriva in this match. Something tells me it's going to go 3, but I'm going to pick Kopriva to win in straight sets because I just think he's the stronger clay court player. I think he's going to have a lot of answers for Mueller. So give me Kopriva in 3 sets. And here's a look at Griekspoor's half of the draw. Just to go through some of these matches quickly, we did have these broken down in our day 3 breakdown for yesterday. But let's go through these matches pretty quickly. Jodar against Machac. That's going to be a really great match tomorrow. I picked Jodar. I like his aggression. I think it's time for him to kind of step out and get some of these quality wins. It's much easier for you to do that on a 250 level than it is a Masters Series. There's a lot of pressure for you on the Masters Series. I think he'll find some familiarity here on the clay as well. So I like Jodar to win that. Probably going to be a 3-setter. Machac, not a great clay quarter either. So I'm favoring Jodar a little bit there to edge him out in a tough match. So that'll be an advance to the quarterfinals. Buse, guys, I'm still ecstatic that Buse was able to win that match over Berrettini. I think he's going to take care of Carabelli. We talk about that Carabelli second serve. I think Buse is going to be able to capitalize on that weak second serve of Carabelli and just put a lot of pressure on him to one, hit good first serves, but also not to hit these weak second serves because he'll be on the defensive pretty quickly. Buse also a very very good clay quarter. He moves very well. He strikes the ball very well. So look for him to advance into the quarterfinals there. And then the last one is Griekspoor against Van Assche. And Van Assche is a challenger level player. He has had success on the clay. We talked about his success in juniors. He won the French Open over Arthur Fils. So he does have a lot of history of success on the clay. Just hasn't been able to transfer it over to the tour level just yet. This would be a great match for him to kind of announce himself here against Griekspoor. And we talked about how he really needs to kind of step up a little bit more as he's had so much success in the challenger level that it's time for him to make that step into the ATP 250 level and maybe start to make some of these quarters and semis and finals. But we'll see what happens tomorrow, guys. Let me know your picks in the comments. And here's a look at our round of 16 records. A 4-0 day for us today. Looking pretty good. Better than the first round for sure. We'll see how tomorrow goes and recap once we get there. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We got another video out for Bucharest. We got another video out for the Houston Open. So make sure you check those out as well to keep up on everything tennis. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.